If genes are a significant part of that, how some people can handle more red meat or eggs and some people less. So there's like the baseline that, tell me if I'm wrong, but there's typically a baseline of more plant-based tends to be healthier, but some people can have a little more animal protein than others.
Yeah, yeah, I believe you summed it up right. At least that's what my observation is about the data. It may lead to this conclusion if you look at the data. Like we have some dietary patterns which are commonly seen as a foundation. And as explained before, the foundation is whole plant-based foods, and then whatever you throw on top of it doesn't seem to matter that much.
I see.
To give you an example, that's why we see positive health outcomes in something that is even called an eco keto trial, not trial, eco keto diet. The eco keto trial is a 100% vegan keto or keto diet, I should say, ketogenic diet. And they also have seen some really great benefits. We see usually vegetarian diets doing fairly good, are actually really good. Pescatarian diets are really great. 100% strictly plant-based diets seem to or tend to be really, really health promoting as well. And even omnivorous diets like the Mediterranean diet, for example, is also relying heavily on whole plant-based foods, but they still eat meat. They still have some fish on top of it and dairy and so on and so forth. So it's really interesting if you look at all these dietary patterns and you see all these positive health outcomes. And I'm saying all this to tell your listeners that there's variety. Choose whatever dietary pattern fits best to your lifestyle and try to increase the whole plant-based food kind of like ratio that you have between animal-based products, both plant-based foods between animal-based products in your diet. Try to increase it slightly and maybe go above 50% and around to if you can 75 80%, something like that, or if you want to go higher, by all means do so. But that's where we see really great health benefits actually. And
I see. So then tell me if I'm wrong, but just to sum that up, so basically you're not necessarily saying everyone has to be vegan, but you're saying a vegan diet is sufficient, and you can flourish and excel and feel amazing, and a vegan diet has amazing health benefits. But so does a Mediterranean diet or a balance. It just depends on their preferences and their what works for them. So typically, bottom line, plant-based, just not meat-based. So plant-based, and then as long as they're having mostly whole foods, plant-based grains, that rest is typically up to preferences and genetics and all of that, lifestyle. Does that kind of sum it up accurately?
yeah, yeah, you nailed it. You nailed it. Exactly. I'm not telling anyone to go fully vegan. I mean, again, as a veganism is biased. I wish a lot of people would go vegan, but looking at the data objectively, that's not really necessarily something you have to do. You want to have a lot of whole plant-based foods as your foundation and fit that dietary pattern to your own lifestyle, whether it's a vegetarian, pescatarian, lacto-vegetarian, eco keto or keto diet, or no keto diet, or something like that. It doesn't seem to matter that much as long as stay within the range of kind of like this dietary pattern.
I see. That makes sense. And I appreciate all the insight. That was all fascinating. And I'm curious, what is your motivation for being entirely vegan? Is it a more like animal rights reasons or more health reasons? I'm curious on when you became vegan and what your motivation was to begin.
Yeah, so to answer the first part of your question first, when someone says I'm vegan, the real definition of veganism has just to do with your moral and ethics. So you do it
Ah,
for the animals.
okay.
I know this can sound confusing when you first hear about this. Allow me to maybe make an example. So I can eat 100% 100% plant-based diet. I can buy a wallet made out of leather, for example. That's clearly not vegan per se. A vegan doesn't see animals as slaves or commodities, and you don't want to really kind of like show any type of you don't want to sponsor this type of industry
I see.
because you kind of like see what happens behind the curtains, and you don't want to kind of like sponsor it with your own money, that is, or fund it, if you so will. So that is basically what a vegan is. It's someone that tries its best to kind of like, and doesn't really kind of like see animals as slaves and commodities. How I became vegan, I was actually around 17 years ago, so 18 years ago, I changed my diet to eating whole plant-based foods overnight. And that is actually what kept me, or actually released me from all the symptoms that I had back in the days.
Very good.
But again, it's an anecdote. That's why you don't hear me mentioning it on my platform that much. I mean, I could easily make a very emotional story out of it, but I don't tend to because it can be misleading to people. My platform is there to share the science objectively. That's at least what I try to do. But during the vacations, I was still eating a vegetarian diet for, well, practical reasons. When I was out with on vacation with my friends, still to this day, no one is actually vegan or eats a 100% strictly plant-based diet at the time. So I was eating a vegetarian diet, but I didn't eat meat, but maybe like a pizza margherita with some mozzarella and so on top of it, or maybe some gelato,
Uh,
ice cream. But only during vacations, and when I came back to Switzerland, my home country, I started eating a whole plant-based food diet again. So it was just maybe for a few weeks per year. It was around, I don't know, 8 years, 9 years, 10 years ago, during my first visit in Bali, when we were actually visiting a cacao plantation.
Sounds interesting.
Yeah, I'm a cacao lover. I love it. And we had the opportunity to visit a cacao plantation. And we were offered a lot of different coffee types, like coffee made out of cocoa or coconuts, cacao beans, and
Really?
really awesome stuff. And one of the other coffees was Luwak coffee. Luwak coffee is a delicacy, basically, if you so will, and is something that you just share on good occasions. It's expensive, and I drank it, and it was actually quite tasty. However, I then saw how it was done. And yeah, I don't know if you heard about it, but Luwak coffee is made out of the poop
Oh,
of,
the
yeah,
bat coffee.
exactly.
Oh no.
It was that one. And yeah, as that wasn't bad enough, they showed us how they help the animals. So the animal is called luwak, hence the name luwak coffee. And they hold these small animals in cages that I'm really bad at measuring lengths, but I don't know, maybe 2 meters, something like that. And it had holes in which the poop could figure through. And just like you're in prison, they let the animals out for 1 hour per day. And I know that the people working there were joking when they were letting the animal out, like, oh, it's aggressive and stuff like that. And they were laughing at it. And I was feeling so weird and awkward that I supported these people. So that was where I thrown to myself, what am I doing? I'm already eating a plant-based diet most of the time, so I will become vegan from this day on. And that was the day in which I turned vegan. And can't fully remember when it was. Again, maybe 7, 8, 9 years ago, something like that. So
That's a powerful story, and that makes sense. Seeing that firsthand, I can imagine how that made you feel angry, and it's not right to treat any animals like that.
yeah, I see animals now as sentient beings, and now I'm not someone that is, a super animal lover and I go crazy about any animals and stuff like that. But I see them as sentient beings that deserve the right to live and to be, left alone. And yeah, that's how I see animals. And it's just really interesting to see how we interact with different species differently, actually, of animals. So but yeah, that was the turning point in which I turned vegan, and yeah, it's been quite a long time actually since then.
Oh, and no, I respect that. That's a very powerful story, and I appreciate you sharing all of that for sure.
Thanks for asking.
Oh, definitely. And it is interesting how you're saying how humans interact with different species. I know this is random, but I think it's fascinating how intelligent dolphins are. I mean, every species has, certain intelligence level, but how like elephants and even horses, how sentient, how recently I heard a story where a friend has a horse and he said that he was riding the horse at night in the middle of nowhere, and all of a sudden the horse stopped and it wouldn't go further, and it was acting kind of frustrated, and he couldn't see anything, and he had a gun on him, and this was in South Florida in like the country, and when he chambered the gun, all of a sudden someone came out of the bushes and was like, oh. And it's interesting because he was saying how horses have like a sort of like a different perception, like they can feel energy, and so it's just fascinating how some animals are so they have the ability to feel energy and connect with you on another level, and it's just fascinating. Yeah, you're right. How we interact with animals, each species, it's a special thing for sure.
Yeah, that's a beautiful story, and it's one of many. For example, here in Switzerland, depending where you go, it's very rare. You can actually buy horse meat. It's very rare. It's very rare. But if you look at that and like, wow, you can buy horse meat in there, and many people look at them and like they love horses over here. Most Swiss people do, and like that's so weird. And then I'm always asking myself the question like, okay, yeah, but what's the difference between a horse and a pig and a cow
I had a feeling you were going to say that.
or a cat? It's called speciesism. You're basically, yeah, you're basically looking at different species differently and implying your values or more on certain species than others, basically, which is really interesting to see. But again, that's how we grow up. And I don't want to sound like I figured out the formula and I've seen through the schemes and stuff like that. No, it's just like once you ask yourself the question, it's becoming really interesting because we are not shown that side. And who wants to see that side? Who wants to see sentient beings die? No one. And you cannot sell a product that way. For example, I was already vegan at that point, but I used to live with my parents many, many years ago, of course, and I was walking down the river, and there is a small farm. And they usually have their cows out on the field grazing, and that was the first time ever. And again, I was in my mid-20s or something like that, in which I looked at the cows and I'm like, how come I never asked myself, where's the bull? Where's the male cows, if you so will? Like, where are they? And how can they multiply without, a male around them? Yeah, and I will spare you with the details, but yeah, it's not really fun once you go Google what happens. So yeah, it's things like that that just make you feel like, okay, that was my personal decision to become vegan. And yeah, it was kind of like really interesting to see. And again, all my family is not vegan. I love them. All my friends are not vegan. Well, some of them are actually, but like really close friends, which lives around me. But there's most of them, or actually all of them, are not vegan. I love them. It's not like I don't talk to people that are not vegan. Actually, I have also non-vegan clients, which I'm helping as well. So it's not like I'm imposing my moral and ethics on others, but yeah, if people are asking me about this, I'm open to talk about why I choose to be vegan myself.
Absolutely. No, and I like that you're not biased, but you just hold true to what you believe in. I respect that. And I'm gonna Google what happens to the bull because now I'm curious.
Also, like how cows get pregnant. That's, yeah,
Interesting. I'm gonna
traffic.
Google that. I'm gonna Google that too. I know that I have family in the Midwest on my mom's side, and they would tell me how bulls cause so many problems. Like if there's a bull in the pasture and it sees cows, a quarter mile away, it'll go right through the barbed wire, like doesn't even care. And how they destroy things, and how it's interesting how, these are things that we don't know living in cities, how certain animals can be and their behavior, it's just interesting.
Yeah, it's really interesting.
It
There's
is.
many things like that going on in the industry. Again, I admire the work of many vegans that are right there on the field, looking behind the curtains. That's something I couldn't do. I feel like my stomach or my heart couldn't stomach it, if you so will. But yeah, also like what happens to chickens, to male chickens, for example. That's something that not many people are aware of because usually all you see is a chicken laying eggs, and that's the females. What happens to the male?
Interesting. I'm gonna
Yeah.
Google those two things.
Yeah, it's not going to be a fun watch, but I believe it's important to understand where our food comes from to make moral and ethical decisions on what we are supporting. I mean, if you watch all that stuff and you're like, yeah, I don't really mind, by all means, go ahead. I mean, if you watch it and you're like, I will still buy that stuff, yeah. I just know for myself I couldn't stomach it.
I understand. No, that makes sense. And very a lot of great insight today and perspective. So I appreciate that. Got a couple more questions. Actually, one of them is any special recipes since you like a strictly vegan diet, and so I'm sure you have some great recipes. What's your favorite recipe, would you say? Could be anything. It could be a dessert, it could be breakfast, lunch.
That's a really difficult question to answer. Let me think. I honestly love poke bowls, for example. I also love my muesli, which I'm making on a daily basis.
That sounds good.
It's filled with tons of fruits, dried berries, cacao, puff quinoa, and seeds, nuts, whole grains, stuff like that. Wheat bran, huge fan of wheat bran. Super underrated food in my opinion. Highly nutritious. Yeah, there's a lot of great foods. It's usually more, but if I'm looking at my week, muesli and some poke bowls and acai bowls at one of my favorite restaurants here in Zurich are probably my favorites that I'm eating on a frequent basis.
I mean that those three sound good. Like you can't go wrong with those three.
Yeah, definitely.
It's definitely something you could eat every day and not get tired of, for
Yeah.
sure. That's cool. Are you, this is a random question, but just to throw it in, I like to ask if you with your workouts, do you prefer mornings or evenings? Because it seems to be like a 50-50 split.
Yeah, I can choose when I want to train, and it's usually in the morning. I'm a morning person. But yeah, I also understand that we are all different. Of course, if people can choose, like I'm 100% with you. My observation is also that it's 50-50. Not everybody wants to train in the morning. But of course, we also have daily jobs, which forces us to choose morning or evening or midday. So, but yeah, I can choose, so I choose morning.
Okay, and I
What
agree.
about you, actually? Are you a morning person?
I prefer morning. In the evening, it's hard to have as much energy, and in the morning, I feel like it gives you that mental clarity and that focus and that boost to just, hit the day running. I'll hit the ground running for the day, and mornings for sure. But of course, if I have to do an occasional evening workout, it's better than nothing. So,
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's just weird. You probably, or all people that are consistent with training, develop an inner rhythm, and your body expects to train at a certain time. And even if you go a couple of hours later, you start to feel weird. I don't know if you experience this.
oh yes, it's funny you say that for sure.
Yeah, you have a drop in your working volumes, in your working load that you're doing, and motivation, and you just feel weird, like out of place. Like you think about, okay, now I actually would be home, sitting in front of the couch, resting, and yeah, it's weird how the body works actually.
It is. There's so many things people don't think about for sure. That's interesting. Got two last questions. What are you currently training for? Or if you're not, don't have a specific thing you're training for, what's your desired training style? Is it more bodybuilding, muscle growth? What would you say?
I would say I'm more in turning into or leaning into a phase of my life that is more the most important thing is health and enjoyment. I'm still training hard at the gym, and I believe how I train. So I train 4 times. I do an upper body, lower body split. I train my upper body 2 times and my lower body 2 times. And on the remaining days, I'm doing cardio on every day. But on the remaining days, I don't do resistance training. And I'm really enjoying this. It gives me a lot of freedom and a lot of enjoyment actually following the split. And yeah, I'm training for health. The way I train probably still allows me to grow muscles. Even if I look back, I also receive feedback from people that haven't seen me for some long time and they look at me like, oh, Luca, you look more jacked, more defined. But it's not like I'm following a diet or I want to be more lean and stuff like that. I mean, I'm just enjoying it. And the lifestyle I'm following, being very active throughout the day, allows me to be more shredded, probably the most.
Makes sense.
And yeah, that's basically it. But as I stated earlier, if I were to skip a training, I wouldn't go mad about it. Or if you told me, well, look, if you keep following this plan in a parallel universe, if you keep following this plan, you will, you could gain more muscles if you follow that others. And, but I wouldn't really do that because I really enjoy it right now. If I can stay shredded like this, maintain or even build muscles on top of it, great. But or if not, okay, also great. I mean, I'm enjoying the process and the
Yeah,
journey.
I see. Focus more on your health, enjoying it, and functionality, just overall health, the lifestyle.
Exactly.
I
Exactly.
like that. That sounds good. Final question is if you have any advice you want to share with the audience, any final say, and then after that is where they could find you. And I'll, of course, in about 2 or 3 weeks when I post it, I'll tag you and I'll let you know prior to that as well. But first question is if you have any final thoughts you want to share, and then where they can find you.
Yeah, so my final thoughts are maybe something to leave the audience with is that since your content, as far as I'm understanding, is very fitness centered, we are usually always talking about proteins and so on and so forth, which is great. But I believe something that is really underrated is fiber intake.
Ah,
And getting enough protein in is as easy as it probably never was in the entire human history with all these high protein products. But what often gets neglected is fiber. Fiber can only be found in plants. And Andrew Reynolds, a scientist out of New Zealand, I believe, made the biggest analysis ever about fiber. Took all these studies into consideration up until 2018 for randomized control trials and observational data to 2017. And he released this analysis in 2019. The biggest benefits were seen for people that went from general fiber intake, which is only around 15 grams or less. It's 100 grams of oats per day.
oh wow, that's
Yeah,
nothing.
exactly. If you go from 15 to 30 grams of fiber, you can see huge drops in chronic diseases such as cardiovascular disease, type 2 diabetes, cancer, you name it.
Wow.
Crazy. But there was a dose response, meaning the more fiber you started eating after that threshold of, I believe it wasn't 30 grams, 29, 28, but I usually tell people 30 because that's also the guidelines here in Switzerland. There was a dose response, more fiber you ate, the more the risk started to go down. But the best drop was reached from going to general fiber intake to around, again, 10, 15 grams to around 30. And after that, it still went down, but it wasn't like a huge drop anymore. But it still went down gradually
I see.
as you ate more fiber. And that is something that is really not talked about much in the fitness space. But honestly, I believe health and fitness are intertwined. And if they're not, well, they will be, or they have to. Because
Absolutely.
if you neglect health or healthy food choices, yeah, maybe not in 5 years, 10 years, and especially when you're young, you feel immortal. But once you hit, again, I'm not old, I'm 34 or about to turn 34. Once you hit my age, you start thinking more, hopefully ahead, like future, and start thinking about family or other things. And then you're like, yeah, I want to focus more on my health. And once you start doing that, yeah, you want to focus again getting your fiber intake up, which is it's not super hard to do, especially if you consume whole plant-based foods. Again, it's always going back to that. It's also not reaching 30 grams, as I explained earlier. It's not that hard if you eat grains, legumes, and fruits, vegetables, and stuff like that throughout the day. That's probably something that I want to leave your audience with, and what I believe is a little bit underrated in the fitness
Oh
space.
yeah.
Yeah, health. Take care of your health because if you get sick, God forbid, in the future, you cannot train. Yeah, your gains will disappear quite fast. So take care of your body.
True. True. No, that's a great final word. And interesting as well. No, thank you so much. And I can tag you on Instagram, but where else can what else do you want to share with the audience where they could find you?
Yeah, thanks for asking. So your audience can find me either on Instagram, Luca Fit Health, or Luca underline Fit Health, I should say. I have the same tag on TikTok, same username on TikTok. You can also find me on YouTube. So yeah, pretty much on every kind of like social media platform. And yeah, thanks.
Awesome. No, thank you. I appreciate it. It was a great episode. You provided a lot of value for sure. And in the future, I'll loop back around once this platform has even more of a following. And the top 15, I'll re-interview so you can provide more insight. So I'll definitely be talking to you in the near future.
Yeah, I would love to. Again, thanks for having me, Jonathan. And I really appreciate the work you're doing and the platform you're creating. Feel like there needs to be more people like you that want to share good information and are also open-minded about many topics, especially in today's age, which also like in your country, what I'm getting is the spread of misinformation is at an
Oh, yeah.
all-time high. It's
Oh,
really
yeah.
crazy. And it's starting to hurt a lot of people as well. So we need platforms like yours that are trying to, engage in fruitful conversations, maybe even some debates sometimes. But that's all part of the journey and understanding the science, the data behind the claims. And so yeah, thanks for what you do and thanks for having me. And I would love to come back in the near future.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Have a good weekend, and we'll definitely be in touch.
Thanks, you too.
Thank you, Luca. Bye.